Welcome to Our Highest Work, a podcast where we are gathering and sharing the best ideas that we can find for spiritually based life success. My name is George Cow, and in today's episode, we continue our series on spirituality. And today, we're going to be delving into exploring 10 practices for spiritual growth. I'm excited to share these with you, and as always, I look forward to your comments and questions about the episode. If you wish to, you can find this episode is episode 38. So you can find it at www.ourhighestwork.com/38. That's where you can find the Facebook thread for this episode. That's where I prefer the comments to be whenever possible. Some of you are actually here live watching, and of course when you're live watching, you're absolutely welcome and encouraged to comment right on the YouTube video itself. So welcome to you. I already see that Bob White commented on live, so thank you, Bob, for joining me today. All right, so last time we talked, in episode 37, we talked about how do we determine what is true about spirituality and really what is true about any life philosophy. And I shared with you 5 ways to figure that out. 5 ways that I figured that out, and hopefully you can use that as well. And if you want to check that out, that's episode 37. But today, let's go into the actual habits and actions we can take to develop ourselves into the highest versions of ourselves that we can be here on Earth. And as always, I want to start with the quote of this episode. And the quote of this episode goes like this: "When each one of us becomes an active and living book of lessons for those who see our examples, the boundaries of religious interpretation will give way to a new era of brotherhood and peace that we've been waiting for." And that was by Chico, Javier, a Brazilian spiritual leader. I'm going to spend just a few minutes telling you about him because he's one of my heroes, truly. Probably at this point, the person I most look up to in terms of spiritual heroes. So Chico Javier, most people in North America have never heard of him. Most people in the world have never heard of him. But he is considered a national hero in Brazil. I discovered him, I came across him about 4 years ago, I think now, almost 4 years ago. And this guy is amazing. He was a humble, government worker. He worked on a farm, a government farm, and so that was his full-time job. In the evenings and weekends, he would share his gift of automatic writing. What is automatic writing? Automatic writing is when some people are able to be to let the spirits come through them and have the spirits write. And so what's amazing is that this guy has been able to do that ever since he was young, and what he was able to do in his lifetime, in the evenings and weekends, he did automatic writing of 450 books. 450 books by automatic writing. Now, people might say, well, that's just, he's a creative guy, he writes a lot. Now, get this. Not only did he write all those 450 books, very importantly, he donated all of the profits of those books. I mean, profits meaning besides, I don't know what the definition of profit is, because he always lived a very humble life. He lived in a very small house his entire life, very humble. Everyone saw him as a true servant of the community, and he donated all the proceeds of his book to create basically social welfare centers, feeding and housing the poor and the old. The poor and the old was what he focused on. And in his lifetime, I saw a report about him that based on his own work alone, his own proceeds from his books, he founded over 2,000 social welfare centers in Brazil from the proceeds of his books, because he gave it all away during his lifetime, not after he died, but during his lifetime. And the other thing about this, okay, is not only did he write amazing spiritual books, that this guy had an elementary school education. And he wrote books that were highly technical and scientific through automatic writing about some, some depths of science, but he also wrote about the afterlife, and these are supposedly all from the spirits. And he also wrote poetry that were supposedly from Brazilian poets that had passed on, dead Brazilian poets, and literature professors in Brazil, and famous, well-known literature professors studied these poems and said, "Yep, this is the voice of so and so who supposedly has passed on, but I don't know how this guy is able to produce this exact voice." And the other thing he did was he had thousands of people lined up at his house. It was at least once a month. Maybe he did this every weekend. And he would write letters from their dead loved ones. And he would, again, have thousands of people line up, and he would just write letters furiously. He would have someone else, he would have a stack of papers, and as he wrote, he was basically covering his eyes because it was just the spirits writing through him. And as he wrote, the people would take the paper away, and he would continue writing, and when he was done with that piece, they would take it away. There's movies about him in Brazil. I was lucky enough to see one of those that was translated into English. It was, I think it was called Chico, Javier, and I'll try to find and post a link of that. Anyway, this guy, you can tell I'm a big fan of his. He has passed on. He passed on in 2002, I believe, and he wrote I've only read maybe 2 of his books out of 450, and they are so incredibly, profoundly, spiritually uplifting. And the book that I like the most of his, it's actually his most famous book. It's called The Astral City, the English translation. The one that I like, there's several English translations, and the one that I like is actually free online as a PDF, and I'll be sure to post the link in the episode notes page. And to find the episode notes page, go to www.ourhighestwork.com/38 and click on any of the links, the YouTube link or the Facebook link. The Facebook link you'll probably find the episode notes a little bit easier there. So anyway, I highly recommend you look into this person. He was a model of virtue, and yet he also was profoundly mediumistic, bringing through high-level spirits to communicate, profound moral teachings for how we live and what the afterlife is like. So, anyway, let me go on now to share with you what the 10 spiritual practices are. The first I will share with you 7 practices that, if you will do these daily, will make a dramatic difference in your life. Now, as with all habits, you might not start by doing them daily. You might start by doing them every now and then, or maybe just start with one of these 7 things that you do daily for 5 minutes, and then build up to having that become a habit, and then layer on another one, and let that become let those 2 become habits. And habits can take, based on the latest research I've read, 66 days, 2 months is the average time it takes to create a habit, if people are intentional and they stick with it. And during those 66 days, people can lapse, of course. Lapsing is not unusual when you're creating habits, very normal. But the key is to get back into it. The key is, oh, I didn't do it today. Okay, well, I'll make sure I do it tomorrow. Or, oh, I just realized I didn't do it for the last 2 days. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it for 1 minute today. It's more important when you're creating habits that you get back into it, get back into it, get back into it for even just half a minute, even just a tiny bit of time. It's more important that you get back into it than to say, screw it, I've already lost this entire day, or I've already lost this entire week. I might as well just not do anything virtuous for the rest of the week, right? No, just keep getting back into it, even if it takes you 10 seconds to do something. Do it. Make it easy for yourself to get back into it. Okay, the first practice is to study spiritual texts. Study spiritual texts. This is, I would say, the foundational practice, because if you keep yourself reading spiritual books or watching spiritual videos or listening to spiritual audios, you will naturally build the understanding, as well as the motivation, the inspiration to want to practice spiritual growth. If you aren't regularly studying filling your mind with spiritual ideas, the habits tend to start to lose themselves over time because you forget why. Human beings are so incredibly amnesiac, forgetful. I don't know how to say that word. We're incredibly forgetful. We need reminders. I need reminders every single day about what the purpose of life is, what I'm supposed to be doing in my business. I mean, when I say I need reminders every day, I don't mean I literally read, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But I need reminders all the time. And you probably do as well. So number one, study spiritual texts. Now, what spiritual text should you study? Well, whatever spiritual path has most inspired, informed, uplifted you, study the texts from that tradition. If you are wondering what text to choose because you're kind of a seeker right now, what I'll do is I will put in the episode notes page some of my favorite books that have uplifted me. Some of these are completely free online because they're really, really old. So I'll do that in the episode notes page, ourhighestwork.com/38. And I also encourage you to share with us in the episode Facebook thread what spiritual books. So books, you can post about books or audios or videos have most informed your spiritual path. So I really look forward to again, what is this podcast? I always say we're gathering, right? Gathering and sharing the best ideas. So it's not just me gathering and sharing the best ideas. I always hope that you will as well. So study spiritual texts. And in terms of an actual practice to do with this, I would suggest start with 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening. Even just starting with 5 minutes in the morning. Now I have a habit of reading about 5 minutes when I first wake up and before I turn off the lights to go to bed. And it's incredibly, even if that day I'm really busy, I'm really tired, and I only get 1 minute reading in, it's better than nothing. Remember that. Even 1 minute is better than not doing it. And you can certainly do it for 1 minute. Okay? All right. That's the first one. The second practice is prayer or meditation. Now, these two are very different things, and you could spend the rest of your life studying either of these two topics. So I don't mean to belittle them by putting them together, but I do. But they are what some people might call contemplative practice, and I tend to find that people either really gravitate towards meditation or they really gravitate towards prayer. It's rare that someone gravitates greatly towards both. So that's why I put them together as prayer or meditation. You can do both if you really feel energized to do both. But please do at least one of them. And meditation in the last 20 years has become really mainstream and really popular. All kinds of publications like the Harvard Business Review, Time Magazine, everyone is writing about the benefits of meditation, and there are very well-regarded academic institutions that are studying the effects of meditation on the brain and on workplace productivity, on how it affects marriages and relationships and parenting and everything. So meditation, for sure, is a proven way to bring balance into your emotional life. And for those who do meditation a lot, it also is a doorway into spiritual understanding. Some people, well, in fact, remember episode number 36? I interviewed Dr. Dean Radin, and he was talking about supernormal, like superpowers, literally superpowers that human beings can develop. Things like clairvoyance and psychic ability and telekinesis, like ability to move objects with the mind alone without using the body. Superpowers, many others. There's levitation, literally. There's people who live simply on breath alone, like they don't need any food or water. There's documented cases of breatharians. So superpowers of human beings, and when I asked Dr. Radin, is there one central practice that brings people there, and he says meditation. So if you meditate correctly and for long enough, for consistently enough, there's a good chance that you start developing some superpowers. Not that that should be your goal, but that tends to be the effect of meditation. Now, I have to say that I actually gravitate a lot more towards prayer. Now, meditation, I have tried it off and on all throughout my life. Last year I went on a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, silent retreat, where we had to deposit our phones at the door when the beginning of the 10 days, and we couldn't use any technology. We couldn't even write. They didn't give us anything to write with. Nothing. We couldn't even talk to each other for 10 days. We sat in meditation for hours every single day for those 10 days. And I did that because some of my friends said it changed their life. So I said, okay, we'll try it. Well, to be honest, it didn't really change my life. I found it to be extremely difficult to do, and it didn't do a whole lot. I mean, I'm sure it did something for me, but not something I can identify. And so I also, prior to the 10-day meditation retreat, I actually created a habit where I consistently meditated for 6 months, every single day, up to 30 minutes a day for 6 months. I did that to prepare myself for the 10-day meditation. And so the entire last year was my meditation intensive experience, and I'm not meditating today. So I know that I know some people swear by it and say, oh, everyone must meditate. I don't really believe that. I believe that everyone must either meditate or pray if they want spiritual growth. So let me now talk about prayer, because that's what I gravitate towards. And prayer has been life-changing for me. Prayer, the easiest definition I've ever heard of is simply prayer is speaking to God. Now, some people pray to angels, some people pray to their spirit guides, some people pray to Mother Earth. I pray to God. I pray to God, and I also talk to my spirit guides sometimes as well. But from the spiritual literature that I've read, the spirit guides seem to be telling us pray to God mostly. Sometimes talk to us too, but pray to God mostly, and God will give us the commands to help you. If God, God being smarter than any of us conscious individuals, knows what's really best for each one of us for the longest term possible. So when we pray, God says, well, let me take a look and see if it's really good for you. And if it truly is good for you, you got it. If it's really not good for you, I'll do something else that's better for you. And so that's how I think of it. And I'll just speak a little bit about prayer, what I've learned from prayer, a couple of elements of it. One part that's really important is whenever possible, try when you pray, especially when you pray for something like, oh God, please bring me more money, or please bring me more clients, or please help me to be, have my marriage be better, or please help me and my children to get along better, or whatever it is you're praying for. Always remember to add, if it is your will for my life. If it is your will for my life. If it is for the, another way of saying it is, if it is for the highest good of everyone, including me, then let this happen. Because remember, if you pray from a prideful place, like, God, give me this thing. I demand that I have this thing. And some people believe that to be working, but I think if they, God might give that to them as a test. But from the spiritual literature I read, it's very important. Even Jesus, taught us, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's not, damn it, give me this and give me that. No, it's, God, I feel like I need this in my life, and if it is for the highest good of everyone, if it is your will for my life, then please grant it to me. If not, now this is the next part that's really important. So if it is your will, it's really important to add it to every prayer, especially when you're asking for something, right? If the next part is, and if it is not your will, I know that something even better will come along, and I pray that you will help me to accept it with understanding and with joy. And so that's the second part that a second tip I want to give you for prayer. The third tip that I want to give you for prayer is, it's absolutely fine to be praying for things that you want in your life, like have a better life. Absolutely fine. But also try to remember as often as you can to pray for clarity and strength to exit your suffering and go into love and virtue. I'll say that again. Pray for clarity on how to do it, and the strength to do it. The strength to do what? To exit suffering and go into love and virtue. Now, virtue, you might replace that with an actual virtue. I'll give you some examples of virtues are, things like hope, or contentment, or compassion, or discipline, or faith and trust. So those are some examples of virtues. And final tip for prayer, don't forget to pray for others. And for the world too. So pray for specific others in your life, the people closest to you. But also, you know what? Pray for your enemies. This is what Jesus taught us, right? Pray for your enemies. Ever since I started praying for my enemies, and by enemies I simply mean anyone you are judging, anyone you hate or feel annoyed by or resentful of or think they're less than you, anyone you are judging negatively is your enemy, you might call it, in terms of prayer, and pray for them. Pray when they come to mind. Pray for their well-being. Pray that they are happy, that they feel loved, and that they are even clearer about the highest will that heaven has for their life, and that they will have the strength to take the steps into that higher will. So pray for others, including your enemies, and pray for the world. I mean, the world in general. Just, it's okay to pray for the world in general. Okay, so that's the second practice, is prayer or meditation. And if you just do it, again, even if you do it for half a minute a day, it's better than nothing. So today, do it for 30 seconds and see if it changes your heart. And when you pray, you don't have to talk out loud. You can just pray in your mind. It's okay, but just have as clear of an intention and languaging as you can as you pray. And some people don't even believe in languaging as they pray. They just pray with an intention or with a vision. Oh, one more thing I want to say about prayer that's important, another important tip. We can learn a lot from what Jesus taught us in terms of how to pray, and that's the Lord's Prayer, the one that everyone's heard, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, blah, 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 right? There are entire books written about the Lord's Prayer. I mean, people who analyze every single word and phrase of the Lord's Prayer. The only thing I'll say here, the one tip I'll share here that I think is profound from that is when we pray, we may want to start by reminding ourselves whom we're praying to and the awesomeness of the one we're praying to. So, Jesus is Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Now, that doesn't mean anything for most of us today, but I might say, God, thank you for reminding me that you are all compassionate, you are all powerful, and that you are all-seeing, and that you care for me more than I could possibly understand, much more than my parents could ever care for me, and they care for me a lot. That kind of thing, where you remind yourself. You don't have to remind God. God knows, right? But you're really thanking God for reminding you that that's who you are praying to, and the characteristics of who you're praying to. Because what happens is that strengthens your faith. And then as you pray, there's a clearer line, there's a clearer connection, spiritual connection. So I hope that's helpful as those tips. The third practice is what I call soulful art expression. Soulful art expression, and this could be music. A lot of people love. In almost every major spiritual path, there is some music involved. In Buddhism, there's chanting, right? In Christianity, there's praise and worship. Well, I'll just use those two examples. So music is a very popular one. You might want to put on a spiritual song, and if you're looking for spiritual songs, spiritual music, one place you can always go to is YouTube.com, and just Google spiritual songs, spiritual music, and check out some of the videos there that have spiritual music. Soulful expression, music, it could be dance. Dance is, if you do it from a place of wanting to connect with God, that could be That could be wanting to connect with spirit. Painting or art, visual art, and poetry. Writing poetry to connect with spirit. Okay, soulful art expression. If you can do even a minute of that, you can listen to one spiritual song a day, better than nothing, right? 1 minute of it. Okay, the next one, fourth one, is gratitude. I put gratitude as a separate thing because it is so important. Gratitude practice, what some people do is they, at the end of their day, they will, before they go to bed, they will write down, 5 or 10 things that they are grateful for that day, and try to mix it up so that it's something new every day, or at least don't keep repeating the same thing every single day because then it gets old. Try to make it fresh. A resource for you is www.gratefulness.org, gratefulness.org, and I'll put that in the episode notes page as well. Fifth practice is spiritual journaling. Spiritual journaling. And this is writing of some kind to connect with spirit. It could simply be writing out, it could really be, it runs the gamut. You could be journaling every day just a little bit on the characteristics of God. You could be journaling as if you're writing a diary with God. Or you could be simply journaling about what you're learning about spirituality, but spiritual journaling. Some people even believe that you could speak to God. I think some people call this active dialogue. Active dialogue, I believe, is the phrase. No, maybe that's not the phrase. But there's a phrase. If some of you know, someone I'm sure here knows it, where you write your name and what question you have for God, and then the next line you write God, and then write whatever comes to mind, as if God were then answering you. And of course, some people say, well, that's bunk, that's just your own imagination. But some people really believe it, and some people believe that if you keep practicing this, you will literally get a clearer connection to God, to your truthful source, the highest source, and just journaling as if you're having a conversation with God. In fact, there's a whole book called Conversations with God that Neil Donald Walsh is doing that exact thing, and he believes that it came from God. So who knows? He believes it, and a lot of people believe it too. So the sixth practice is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Now, I also put this, forgiveness and gratitude, by the way, those two things could be integrated into your prayer, right? It could be integrated into your spiritual journaling. But I put them out separately because they are so incredibly important as states of the heart. And so forgiveness is, some people say it's simple. Some people say it's highly complicated, but given the short time we have today, I'll just use the simple version. The simple version of forgiveness is to say, God, help me to see this person as you see them. And you see every one of us, no matter how grossly wicked we are, you see the incredible beauty and preciousness of each of us, and you love us so much that we cannot even imagine it. We love us to the 1,000th points, and so help me, God, to love this person as you love them. And if I am judging them for something bad they did to me, I can't even imagine what bad things I've done to other people that I don't even know that I did to them. Words I've said that I wasn't even aware that deeply hurt someone, maybe for years, right? Something I did, maybe even unconsciously, that kept that person awake for nights. Who knows? We have done so many things that if we knew, we would be asking for forgiveness of so many people, right? But we don't know. And so when we're judging someone else and saying they're such a bad person, we simply need to say, help me to see that person with love. Help me to see that person as the precious person, and help me to see the goodness in them, and pray for their well-being, right? So forgiveness is that's the simplest I can put it. Ideally, forgiveness leads to forgetfulness. To say, totally forget that you even had a resentment for that person, right? Every time they come to you, if they come to your mind again, pray for their well-being and pray for their clarity and strength to do the highest will for their life. That's it. So the seventh practice is work as love. So this is the seventh spiritual practice that I recommend to you, daily spiritual practice, if you can, is work as love. And for this point, I will simply read you a little poem from Khalil Gibran. And the poem goes like this, very short. It goes like this. And what is it to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as if your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy, even as if your beloved were to eat the fruit. It is to change all things you fashion with a breath of your own spirit, and to know that all the blessed dead are standing about you and watching. Work is love made visible. And if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work and sit at the gate of the temple and take alms of those who work with joy. So work with love. Whether you work for a living or you're retired and you simply need to do household chores, work with love. So that's the seventh daily spiritual practice. All right, I have just three more for you that I'll go over briefly. And these three are what I recommend you try doing is at least once a month, more often if you can. Once a month if you can, if not more often. And the three are this: time in nature, being in the forest, or being by the water, or simply sitting on the grass and relaxing yourself into the earth. Being with nature has a profound, rejuvenating, and spiritually healing capacity. And if you can, be barefoot in nature. If you can, even just take off your shoes and socks for a couple minutes and sit and stand in the grass, stand in the water. Okay, be in nature. The second spiritual practice to do once a month or more if you can is spiritual community. To get together with others in the spirit of worship or meditation or discussion on spiritual things. So spiritual community. And hopefully the spiritual community will involve some hugs. So hugs are profoundly good for you. And the third one that try to do once a month or more if you can is volunteering. Volunteering is basically serving other people with no profit motive, with no requirement to get recognition for that volunteering. That's the purest form of volunteering, is when you're just serving and you don't care if it ever benefits you monetarily or people give you recognition for it or benefiting in some other way. Just simply, the only benefit you should get from volunteering, by say should, meaning the purest way, the only benefit is the benefit of the heart, meaning, oh God, I felt so full from serving joyfully. And it teaches you. Volunteering actually gives you more benefits, I would say, than the person you're helping, because it teaches you how to serve with love, which is the greatest lesson you can learn in this life. And it also gives your conscience a very nice massage. It gives your heart a very nice massage, saying, you know what, you are a good person. Reminding yourself that you're a good person. So I hope these 10, and let me just run through them quickly again. Things to do every day if you can. Study spiritual texts, number 1. Number 2, prayer or meditation. Number 3, soulful art expression. Number 4, gratitude practice. Number 5, spiritual journaling. Number 6, the practice of forgiveness. Number 7, working with love. Okay, these are the daily spiritual practices that I recommend that can profoundly shape who you are and help you fulfill your purpose in life. And the three that I recommend doing once a month if you can or more is being in nature, preferably barefoot. Second one is being in spiritual community, preferably with hugs. And third one is volunteering with no care whether you get any benefit except the benefits of the heart. So I truly hope that this episode has been nourishing for you. As always, I welcome your suggestions and your comments and your questions. And you can join our discussion about this episode at www.ourhighestwork.com/38. And I will just take a quick peek at the comments for this episode. Now, I want to thank Barbara Freeman for having commented on our Facebook thread for this episode already. And thank you, Bob White, Barbara Freeman in our YouTube live thread, Tamani Aldini, thank you so much, and Charisse as well for being there. So thank you, and until our next episode, keep your thoughts positive and keep your heart open. Be well.